NATO, the North Atlantic Treaty Organization, has been a cornerstone of Western defense since 1949. Established to counter the Soviet Union, its relevance in today's geopolitical landscape is increasingly questionable. As we evolve, so must our approach to security and international cooperation. It's time to seriously consider disbanding NATO. First, let's talk money. The United States, NATO's primary financial contributor, spent around $732 billion on defense in 2020. A staggering 70% of NATO's budget comes from the US, raising domestic criticism. Imagine reallocating these funds to healthcare, education, or infrastructure, especially with a national debt exceeding $28 trillion. Isn't it time we reassess our spending priorities? The burden-sharing arrangement within NATO has long been contentious. Despite agreements, only 10 of 30 NATO members met the defense spending target of 2% of GDP in 2021. This imbalance stresses countries like the US, which disproportionately supports the alliance. Fair or sustainable? Hardly. Global threats have changed. Cybersecurity, terrorism, and climate change are now at the forefront. Remember the 2020 SolarWinds hack? NATO's traditional military focus isn't equipped to tackle these modern threats effectively. The collapse of the Soviet Union eliminated NATO's original purpose. Since then, NATO's interventions, like in Afghanistan and Libya, have been criticized for straying from its defensive mandate. The Afghan war alone cost over $2 trillion and thousands of lives. Has it truly benefited global security? NATO's expansion post-Cold War has also sparked tensions. Incorporating former Eastern Bloc countries has been seen by Russia as a threat, leading to a renewed arms race and conflicts like the annexation of Crimea. Rather than promoting security, NATO's growth has polarized the international environment. Collective security sounds good in theory, but is problematic in practice. NATO's Article 5, invoked only once after September 11th, means member states could be dragged into conflicts against their national interests. Do we want such entanglements? NATO also hinders the development of a more autonomous European defense capability. The European Union's defense efforts will remain secondary as long as NATO exists. A unified European defense strategy could be more efficient and better suited to Europe's specific needs. Diplomatically, NATO sometimes obstructs resolutions, especially with Russia. Without NATO, a cooperative security architecture might emerge, fostering dialogue over confrontation and leading to a more stable Europe. NATO's role in global arms proliferation is another issue. High defense spending pressures member countries to upgrade military capabilities, fueling arms races and regional conflicts. Is this the cycle we want to perpetuate? NATO's strategic decisions have sometimes clashed with international law, like the 1999 bombing campaign in Kosovo without UN authorization. Such actions undermine the international legal framework. Disbanding NATO could reinforce multilateral institutions like the UN, promoting a rules-based order. Internal cohesion within NATO is increasingly challenged. National interests and threat perceptions vary, leading to disagreements and inefficiencies. Turkey's actions in Syria, for instance, have caused significant friction within the alliance. Finally, consider the environmental impact. NATO's operations contribute to carbon emissions and environmental degradation. Reducing military expenditures could aid global efforts to combat the climate crisis. Critics argue NATO deters aggression and ensures stability. But in a multipolar world with emerging powers and asymmetric threats, this deterrence is questionable. Stability comes at the cost of heightened tensions and militarization. In conclusion, disbanding NATO is complex but worth serious consideration. The financial burden, changing global threats, NATO's interventions, expansion issues, and diplomatic and strategic implications all point to one thing. It's time to rethink NATO's relevance. Let's consider whether NATO truly serves the best interests of its member states and the broader international community.